It's a Sabbath, everyone, as we meet with a topic which looks ordinary, but it's a topic that has a lot in it, the Sabbath. The day called the Sabbath. I have seen people making other days their Sabbath, but we make our day Sabbath, which is Saturday, and taking it from the Bible. But as we are going to study, we will see what importance is found in this day, the Sabbath. Why should we keep it and be more blessed than keeping any other day? So we are going to study what you know and what we should know also that we don't commonly know. You understand? So the Sabbath comes as a day of worship to other people and also comes as a feast to others. So it's got a lot that we have to learn about so that we can choose from the table, choose what is going to benefit us most. Now, the Sabbath, as we see it starting from the first week of life in Genesis start from chapter 2, verse 1 to 3, you find that's where we find the Sabbath, in the first week of life, after God had finished creating the world and also creating the human being. And we saw it's Adam and Eve. Then we find the Sabbath coming straight away. Let's hear from Genesis chapter 2, verse 1 to 2.
Thus the heavens and the earth were finished,
Right.
and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made.
So, to mark my word, there's something that happened. There's something that God did on that day. We are told clearly in Genesis chapter 2, God ended all his work on Sabbath. And what he did then, created the whole earth. Let there be sun, let there be stars, moon, and let there be, fountains of river and land, and let there be animals. Whatever you see in the earth was created on the first week of life. But when he finished on Friday, on the last day, he created humankind, Adam and Eve, and he ended all his work on a Sabbath. So we are seeing there's something quite significant at the beginning, that God also rested on the Sabbath. Let's repeat that verse.
And on the seventh day God ended his work,
Right?
which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made.
So you see the importance of that day, that even God himself rested. He did not work on Sabbath, he rested. He rested on that day, and that's why he commanded humankind to rest, because he did rest. And then the Bible clearly says he was refreshed. That's the Sabbath. So we are seeing something significant on a particular day, not that he did on any other day except that day. But we haven't been told which day is the Sabbath. Before we go to my lesson, we need all those basics that we all know, in case somebody didn't know that there is a verse which clearly shows what day is the Sabbath. So we will find that in that verse, we are only seeing what happened on the first week of life. And then we are seeing, then when you go to the next chapter of Exodus, chapter 20, we see now he writes all the 10 commandments, give them to Moses. With all the 10 commandments, within the 10 commandments, there is the Sabbath coming for us to remember, because it started at creation. And I cannot say it started there. It has ever been there from eternity to eternity, but it was given this earth from the first week of life. Now, when we go to the 10 commandments, we find now we are being told to remember that. Let's go to that verse in Exodus chapter 20, verse 8. We see now God makes emphasis on us to remember, because on the first week of life, he created everything and he also rested. And when he rested, This is a day where ye marvel what he created. We'll find that from the Bible. Let's hear from the verse 8 up to 11.
Remember the Sabbath day,
Right?
to keep it holy.
Right.
6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work.
Right.
But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God.
Now, there is a reason why he says, remember. The first and foremost reason is that he has already instructed it to the first humankind in the first week of life. But there are other reasons, if we go to the spirit of prophecy, why he utters to say, remember. You find these other reasons are not known, Let's go to 60 Testimonies for the Church, volume 6, page 353. Why is God saying, remember? We'll see why. Because we have a full week of 7 days. But then this day he has said, remember. And most people say, he says, remember, because it was the own creation. There is a reason why God says we should remember this day. Now let's hear from 60 there, 353.4 there. That way it says, all through the week, yeah?
All through the week, we are to have the Sabbath in mind,
Right.
and be making preparation to keep it according to the commandment.
You see what he means is that we have a 7 week of life. Throughout each day, keep in mind that day.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So when he says, remember, there is a reason why he says so. There is a reason why he is commanding human beings to remember that day. And now we are seeing from Testimonies, volume 6, throughout every day, we should keep that day in mind. Why? But let's hear more.
We are not merely to observe the Sabbath as a legal matter.
Now, there are people who observe that day as a legal matter. We are not merely to observe it as a legal matter only. Of course, it's a legal matter because God has commanded it. But not only keeping it as a legal matter only, but why? Listen.
We are to understand its spiritual bearing upon
Right.
all the transactions of life.
Right. We are to understand why that day is there. Upon everything that we are doing in a daily life, every transaction we are having, we keep in mind the Sabbath. Do you see, there's a lot extensive to the keeping of the Sabbath. It's not only a day and you say, oh, today is Sabbath, let's rest. If you keep it just as a legal matter, you won't understand the importance of the Sabbath. Here we are told by Sister White that we are not merely to observe the Sabbath as a legal matter. We are to understand its spiritual bearing upon all the transactions of life. We are keeping that Sabbath upon all transactions of life. Now let's hear more.
All who regard the Sabbath as a sign between them and God, showing that He is the God who sanctifies them, will represent the principles of His government.
Now, there's one thing now which has been added. God is a government. So He is looking for the subjects of that government. In the human family, He goes looking for those who belong to His government. Here we have been told that this is a sign. Let's hear. The verse should tell us it's a sign. Go to the Exodus chapter 31. Start on verse 16. Let's hear. Is it a sign? Listen to that.
Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath,
Right?
to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations, for a perpetual covenant.
Right?
It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever.
Right?
For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the 7th day He rested and was refreshed.
Now, in the first family that He adopted are the children of Israel, or the children descending from Jacob. He adopted them. And remember when Jacob fought the angel that day when he was at night and visited by the angel, and then he fought and the angel paralyzed him. And that's the day they changed the name of Jacob to Israel. So that name Israel wasn't Jacob's name. It was God's name. So he now adopts the human family of the Christians, as it is in Galatians chapter 3, verse 29. If ye be Christ, you are also the children of Abraham. You are also Israelites. That's why we are talking about spiritual Israel, and we are talking about Israel by flesh. We are saying we have been adopted as Christians to follow Christ, and we also are part of the government of heaven. So God has got the day which he says in Exodus chapter 31, verse 16 up to 17. It is a sign. Listen to that. Again, verse 17.
It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever.
He has made that particular day a sign.
Forever.
Forever. You may change and change, but he has a perpetual sign which no one will change. It's forever. And that verse is in the Bible, and it clearly says forever. It's a sign forever. Why? It is a sign between those who belong to his government, those who are subjects of his government. He identifies them by that day. That's why I said it's not only as a legal matter, but there's something more to the legality of the Sabbath. What is it? It is that you belong to a government spiritually in heaven, because he has made that sign between a human being who will keep that day, who will also belong to his government. Now, there's something more than that, but let's go back to volume 6, Testimonies for the Church, 353, fourth paragraph. That's where we are reading. So the Bible clearly says it in Exodus chapter 31, verse 16 to 17, that is a perpetual sign. Nobody will change it. And we saw in Exodus chapter 20 that he said he created that day for us to rest. Now we will go back to the law to see who actually should rest. Now, but let's finish this paragraph. Let's hear.
All through the week,
Right?
we are to have the Sabbath in mind and be making preparation to keep it according to the commandment. We are not merely to observe the Sabbath as a legal matter. We are to understand its spiritual bearing upon all the transactions of life.
Right.
All who regard the Sabbath as a sign between them and God, showing that he is the God who sanctifies them, will represent the principles of his government.
These are the principles of his government. What happens in the government in heaven? This law is supreme. The whole universe is resting on that day. So that's what his government is all about. That's what Sister White is telling us through this paragraph, that when we rest, there is a spiritual bearing, which is more than legality, on resting on that day, which is a belonging to the government in heaven. Now let's hear more after that one.
They will bring into their daily practice the laws of his kingdom.
Now, that eventually becomes, in our practice, our daily practice, it becomes the law. So it means when we keep the Sabbath in mind, we now know where we belong, to the government in heaven. And that is the thing that makes us have a sense of belonging to that government. Now let's hear more.
Daily it will be their prayer that the sanctification of the Sabbath may rest upon them.
It is daily our prayer to be found with the principles of God's government, which is the Sabbath. Daily when we pray, we will remember the Sabbath. Everything we do with an index of the Sabbath coming, to make sure we continue to belong to. When we say everything we do, what is it? Children are going to school, and they know exactly on Friday they need to rest, before sunset. Mothers, fathers going to work, they rest on Friday. So it means if that will be a daily thing to remember, it means when you are going also to choose professions for your life, you have the Sabbath in mind.
Yeah.
When you are going to choose work, you have the Sabbath in mind. And in any place where anything interferes with the hours of the Sabbath, that should be in mind on a daily basis. When you are choosing to travel, let's say you are traveling from one town to another town, and you perceive that the time I'll arrive in that next town, it will be sunset on Friday. Then it means you have to rearrange yourself so that whatever you do does not encroach on the Sabbath hours. This is what we do. Whatever we are planning throughout the whole week, we have the Sabbath in mind. Do you understand? This is how we keep the Sabbath daily in our mind. Now let's hear more. Daily.
Every day, they will have the companionship of Christ and will exemplify the perfection of his character.
And when we are thus arranged, then it means the companionship of Christ is within us. Because he knows what we plan, we have the Sabbath in mind. What we do, we have the Sabbath in mind. Whatever comes into our daily life, we have the Sabbath as an index. And then he comes to join us because we are the subjects of his government. Now, there is a lot in the Sabbath that is not just a theoretical, way just to say today is Sabbath, okay, let's rest. We should understand the spiritual bearing of keeping the Sabbath. What is it that we get on the Sabbath? Now, let's hear every day.
Every day, their light will shine forth to others in good works.
Now, let's go to the next paragraph there when it says, in all that pertains.
In all that pertains to the success of God's work, the very first victories are to be won in the home life.
So, for us to be going to church on Sabbath, like today, the Sabbath should be supreme in our homes first. Not only found when you are in the church, but it means when we reign with the Sabbath question in mind, and we reign with the presence of Christ in our midst. So when we go to church and meet others, we go together with the Christ who reigns in us. So here it says, the very first success of any work, even the work of God, comes from having Christ in the home while we have the Sabbath in mind. Do you understand? It's more extensive than knowing it theoretical. We have to learn about the Sabbath. Now listen to that the next time here. In the home, what is it that we are talking about? If the Sabbath is known in the home. Before we go to that next sentence, go back to the law and see what God talks about the home. Let's hear in the Exodus chapter 20. We see from verse 8 we were told to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. 6 days shall all work be done. Now, we want to see now, what is it as regards our homes?
Verse 10. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work.
Who?
Thou.
Me?
Nor thy son.
Even my son.
Nor thy daughter.
My daughter.
Thy manservant.
Manservant.
Nor thy maidservant.
Maidservant.
Nor thy cattle.
Anyone who belongs to me.
Nor thy stranger.
Even
that
a
is
visitor
thy gate.
who comes to visit me on a Sabbath should automatically keep the Sabbath. This is what God has said about the home. Who is in the home? My son, my daughter, my animals outside, anything, my hoe, my instruments, all should rest on a Sabbath. Any visitor who comes and say, even a stranger who comes and say, give me somewhere to sleep, should keep the Sabbath. This is the home duty of the Sabbath. That's why I said, the Sabbath does not start in church. It starts in the home. Now, why should that be done? Verse 11.
For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth.
Because in 6 days, the first week of life where we made the Sabbath, the Lord made heaven and everything on earth, and even you and me. The design of humankind was there on the first week of life. And what?
The sea and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it.
You see, there are so many things that have been done. He rested. One. And then what happened? He stopped the work and he hallowed and was refreshed. Did you hear? There's a lot that happens on Sabbath. There's one, stopping of the work. 2, resting. 3, hallowed. God hallowed the day. So you also rest and you get the blessings. Yeah? And also, what happened to God when he rested? He was refreshed. So that's all the properties of that day which are connected to the government in heaven. So because of all that, he made it as a token, as a sign that he did all these things that we are watching throughout the whole world. Because there was nothing before he created the earth. There was not. What was there? Go to Genesis chapter 1. What was there before God created? What was this earth like? And because I see some people, once they build mansions and they think it's going to last forever. But there's something that was there before these mansions were built. Let's hear in Genesis 1, verse 1.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
Right.
And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep.
Right. So you see, what was there in the beginning? There was no form, nothing. The earth was without form. That's what the Bible says. Nothing. So all the things that we are watching were created by God in the first week of life. And now he set that day to honor the creation of that first week of life. That's why we have that day. Some people will tell you that I go to church on that day because that's the day we go to church. I honor that day because that's the day, It has to be the proper day where he rested and where he put all these blessings on a particular day. Not all the days. I've seen people who misconstrue Hebrews chapter 4, which says every day, and they don't have the context to say that the every day which is being meant there is the every day that they should be found with faith every day. They should accept Christ every day. But they take it to say that now we are worshiping every day. But let me tell you one thing. All the days of the week did not have that blessing. There is one day which was blessed and where God rested. And not only resting, he was refreshed. And until you get that day, you will get those blessings. There is a blessing that the devil always, why is he giving all so many days? Because he wants you to miss that blessing which is on a Sabbath. Now here we are being told that on that day, the worship which is supposed to be there is not only in church, but it says in the home, rest, you, your son, your daughter, your stranger, even your animals outside, they should rest on a Sabbath. So it starts within the home. That's what we are being told by this paragraph where we are reading on 354.1. We are going to go back to it because it's going to teach us about the Sabbath. There's a lot that God gave that day for. Now, basically, we are seeing what we all know, that we get those blessings. So it says it starts with home life. And then there are some people who see this is a day where we are resting. They start thinking, hey, why, because they have nothing to do. Then comes Isaiah 58. Go to Isaiah 58. You find Now you have to know, while you are resting, there are laws again which pertain to your rest. But we know for sure my son is supposed to rest, my daughter is supposed to rest, my stranger or my visitors supposed to rest. If they come, make sure they rest. And they should know when they come to my home, they are coming to meet someone who is resting on a Sabbath, and they will rest. Now, let's hear Isaiah 58, verse 13. We will hear exactly what then do we do on a Sabbath, because if we only rest the whole day, what our thoughts will be haywire, because this is time being wasted. So we want to know whether it's being wasted. God has given strict requirements of what you do while you are resting. Let's hear Isaiah 58, verse 13.
If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath,
Yeah.
from doing thy pleasure on my holy day.
Now, he started with the anatomy of the human being. You've got legs.
Okay.
Those are a problem. Do you understand? So he's talking about your legs, your foot. Where could that foot lead you to? It could lead you to breaking the Sabbath. So he says, turn away thy foot from making your own journeys on a Sabbath. So you see, there's a law now which pertain to your own body. To say your body should, you look at your foot, it should not be used for other things except for the things that pertain to God. Which are they? That's why you can use that foot to go to church, to meet other brethren who are also resting like you. That's used the correct way. But if you say, let me go now and watch cinema, or let me go to work, which is not acceptable, which is secular work, which is not acceptable on a Sabbath, you're breaking the Sabbath. So you have to mind your foot first. That's why Isaiah 58 is talking about the foot. Let's read it again. Let's hear.
If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord, honorable, and shalt honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words.
Now, this is really intense in itself. We have seen the food, yeah? And also, you should be happy for the Sabbath, calling it a sacred pleasure. So when it comes, it should remind you that there is something nice coming. As a day which is pleasurable coming. When the day is coming, the whole week you were minding it. You were putting it in your mind. And when the Sabbath comes, God is watching the way your attitude is towards the Sabbath. You understand? The attitude itself is being blessed. Because something exciting is coming, which will give you that sacred excitement. There is a day which is coming to make sure you rest. So in other words, if you rest, it's a health law as well. Yeah. That's why when you are a Sabbath keeper, you have got another benefit in your health. You're not, your mind is not working every day. Your foot is not working every day. There is somewhere where, you see some people who go to work, intense work, like I do. After some time, they break and go for holiday. Why? They need to recharge the batteries.
True.
There are batteries in the head, batteries everywhere. Recharge everything. And when they come back to work, they are fresh. And they will tell you that I'm really fresh. I've been refreshed by my holiday. So it means there's a break that they have done and refreshed their brain. Not continuously thinking this is to be done, that is going to be done, that, and continuous like that. And sometimes if you are too tired, they will tell you that, you need a break. You need a holiday. But now God, our loving God, has provided a holiday already. He has provided a day where we should break that thought, break that journey, break that activity. The body itself should be re-serviced. An MOT Yeah, reservicing the body is done on Sabbath by God. That's why it has got to be the proper day that he meant. When he rested on that day, he was refreshed. So you need that proper day to have that rest, not any other day. And you see, if you take any other day, the spirit to rest is not there. You just go to church sometimes, go to church, and after that, you see people are now watching football, watching this one. There's no rest. What once a day, where he say, control your food, Isaiah 58 verse 13, your food, and control your brain, whatever you think has got to be that which pertaineth to the worship of God, that which pertaineth to the works of God. Nothing. It could be normal for me to talk about schooling, talk about the work, talk about any other thing in the middle of the week. But come Sabbath, there's a whole tied to that. You have to stop thinking about whatever. Whether you had a court case pending on coming, or a court case or something, when the Sabbath comes, stop thinking about it. That's how your brain is going to be refreshed. It's a health law, actually, that God gave to those who belong to his government. They have a health law to stop. Believe me, when you go to work and you are off, let's say you're on Tuesday, you are off on Wednesday, off, your brain is not off. Your brain is still thinking of other things. But here, we have a day, the Sabbath, which God has said, that day, stop thinking about this and that. And that, let's repeat what you should be thinking about. Isaiah 58, verse 13. Let's hear it properly.
If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day.
So somebody could come and say, okay, let's come and let's go for gym. Some say, I'm going for exercise, on a Sabbath. But your brain needs to rest. Your body needs to rest. It's a health law in Isaiah 58, verse 13. It's not a day for all that. You need those blessings that made God himself get that rest and refreshment. You need that refreshment which God has designed in the Bible. It's not something that you should say, okay, I'll pick on any day and then do the same that God did. No, you have to do exactly on the day where he has put those blessings. He put it on the Sabbath. By the way, I told you, we haven't even found out when that Sabbath is. Because some will say, it's a Monday. Some will say it's a Sunday. Some will say it's a Sabbath, a Saturday. And some will say... So we haven't identified which day, because the Ten Commandments clearly said, so rest on the Sabbath and rest on the seventh day. So we haven't identified which day, according to our names of the days in the week, which one it is. We are going to go to it. But we have seen that there is a day where he was refreshed, when he rested, and he put those laws that what is it that he means by resting. He says, don't use your foot for any pleasure and doing your own pleasure. So, but use your foot for God. That's what it clearly means. Don't use your mind for any other thing except that which pertaineth to God. And the rest that he wants you, so that when you have it, like any other subject of his government, you will get that refreshment. This is what he's looking for. And that will be a health law. It will increase your days because you have a health law of a Sabbath. Now here, let's finish that one. What does he say about if we turn our foot and what? Listen, read it continuous now.
From doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord, honorable, and shalt honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words.
You see the words, they are so controlled that no word which is not promoting the sacredness of that day should escape your mouth. And this is what will give you the refreshment. You did not allow your brain to run haywire into other things, which could be correct when you talk about them in the middle of the week. But today, God wants only sacred talks. Now listen, let's hear. When you have done that, then what does he do what does the government of heaven do to you? Listen to that.
Then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord.
Then that's where you start to enjoy worshiping God.
And I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of the Lord had spoken it.
Sometimes he says promotion neither comes from the east or west or south, but you can see now he is causing you to ride upon it's two ways. The high places could be you always be on top. Yeah? You will never be on the bottom. And then the other highway is the place itself. He will make you ride upon the high places. But we want to see which one is termed high place by the Bible. Go to Micah chapter 1, verse 7. We want to identify what place the Bible refers as a high place, which he says you will ride upon the high places. Micah 1 verse 5. Verse 5.
Verse 5.
Yeah, correction. Not 7 but 5. Mm-hmm.
For the transgression of Jacob is all this, and for the sins of the house of Israel. What is the transgression of Jacob? Is it not Samaria? And what are the high places of Judah? Are they not Jerusalem?
But this is what he says. He will make you ride upon the high places. And what does he mean by high places? He will allow you to go to his city, Jerusalem. That's what he calls high places. These are high places. So when he allows you, exactly, that's what he means. What is supposed to be done in his country is supposed to have the blessing of that Sabbath. Men should rest. And even if you go there, you find they are resting. And what happens on the soil itself should have that rest. You are allowed to go to that high place which belongs to God. And what is the other high places? It's all these blessings to put you on high. We will find them out when we read, because that's the advantage of keeping the Sabbath. God says you will elevate your standard. He will elevate you both in the land and also in your activities. You'll be elevated. But we'll see what are the benefits of keeping the Sabbath. It started with an if. If you do this, if you do that. Now, let's go back to 60, where we are reading. 6354.1. Right, let's hear.
In all that pertains to the success of God's work, the very first victories are to be won in the home life.
Right.
Here, the preparation for the Sabbath must begin.
This is what he's talking about. God is talking to Sister White, saying the very preparation, the first preparation should be found in the home. If you go to a home of a Sabbath keeper, it should show that this is a Sabbath keeping home. Because everything has got the index on the Sabbath. So the very first beginning begins in the home. Now let's hear more. Throughout the week.
Throughout the week, let parents remember that their home is to be a school in which their children shall be prepared for the courts above.
What happens with your children? You are preparing them for the courts above. And how do we stay in the courts above? We keep the Sabbath. Because these are the principles of the government of heaven. And the children should be made away throughout the whole week. Prepare them for the courts above. And what?
Let their words be right words.
So how do we prepare them? Make sure what they talk, their words, no bad word should escape their mouth. Because Those are the principles of God's government. Prepare their words. Prepare how they live, so that they live in the courts above, in the government of heaven. They are principles. So when you have the Sabbath in mind, you only don't dwell with the Sabbath only, but with everything else, because you are a Sabbath keeper. Now listen. Let their words be right words. Yeah? So all those other words, they're only F. They are not found in a Sabbath keeping home. Yeah. All those swearing words, they are not there in a Sabbath. It's no point swearing in the whole week, and then when you come to Sabbath, you put in a suit and you are a holier. Start at home. People should come and find a Sabbath keeping family, who even the way they talk to each other should be subdued to show that they belong to the government above. Now let's hear more.
Let their words be right words, no words which their children should not hear are to escape their lips.
Even some parents, they love to talk, to have words escape their mouth that even the children do not want to hear. The principles of God's government don't allow that. If you're a Sabbath keeper, God wants to find a Sabbath-keeping family which has practiced the whole week the principles of the government. The right words from both the parents and the children. And even the parents should not have words escaping their mouth that the children don't want to hear. They are not supposed to hear. That's an abuse. And the principles of heaven does not allow as well. Now let's hear more.
Let the spirit be kept free from irritation.
No irritation in the family. I tell you, there are some families no one will love to visit. You find everybody's irritable. Things are upside down. Even a stranger, a visitor does not enjoy. There is an irritating spirit in the home. That's not the subjects of the government of heaven. If you are a Sabbath keeper, that's not allowed in the home. You understand? We have all those things which pertain to a Sabbath keeper. Listen to that.
Parents, during the week, live as in the sight of a holy God.
It means we take the God that we stayed with the whole week at home to church, and we bring him back home. Not in the home is something else, and then in church is something else. God wants to find this uniformity from home to church and from church to home. And this is what God wants. It does not want those surprises. As people will say, go to her home or his home, you find the true colors. God wants a uniform from church to home. Thereby, you're preparing for the courts above. Now, and what?
Parents, during the week, live as in the sight of a holy God.
Right?
Who has given you children to train for him. Train for him the little church in your home.
Start with Sabbath, your little church that God has given in the home. Everything that is done in that home is correcting each other. No, you don't speak like that. You should speak proper words. These are not, this is not, you are not respecting, this is rude, this is, correct the children. And also the parents should also have a spirit which is not irritable to the children. So this is a home where Christ and the angels will enjoy dwelling. And come Sabbath, you go together to church with the angels and God in it and enjoy being a Sabbath keeper. Not one style of life in church, another style of life at home. This is not allowed. A Sabbath keeper should be continuously Sabbath keeper. Whether you go to work, they should know we have a Sabbath keeper here at work. Even the people who associate with you at work should know that you are a proper Sabbath keeper. This should be found in all those who are preparing to be in the pearly gates, in the government of God's kingdom. Now, let's hear more.
Train for him the little church in your home,
Right?
that on the Sabbath all may be prepared to worship in the Lord's sanctuary.
You see, there's all that work. It's not a mere legality on that this day has come. We will be found all with suits, all with nice, soft voices. This should continue from home. And after church, goes back home. And this is what God is expecting, not men. You're not doing that for men. You do that because you are a subject of God's government. You're an ambassador of God's government. You should be found doing what your government approves. Do you understand? Now let's hear.
Each morning
And
evening,
right?
present your children to God as his blood-bought heritage.
Each morning, wake up and say, oh, it could be something else. Call the children before they go to school. Call the children, pray with them. Teach them to pray. Teach them to have God. When they are big enough, they are driving, call them, ask them, did you pray before you drive? Did you pray? They are going for an examination. Come, I'll pray for you. Have that as an index in the home, and you enjoy worshiping God. Now let's hear more.
Teach them that it is their highest duty and privilege to love and serve God.
It should be the highest duty and love and a privilege to belong to God. Teach the children every time and make that teaching real. They should watch you doing it and also copy, and that you will enjoy being a Sabbath keeper. You understand? And let's hear.
Parents should be particular to make the worship of God an object lesson for their children.
This should be an object lesson from every parent who is keeping the Sabbath, who is a Sabbath keeper, is keeping a day which is in the government of heaven and should be found with all this harmony in the home, wherever we are found, whether at work, wherever we are, we should be Sabbath keepers, right?
Passages of scripture
Right?
should be more often on their lips, especially those passages that prepare the heart for religious service. The precious words might well be often repeated. My soul, wait thou only upon God,
Right.
for my expectation is from him.
Now, so you see, these are the basics that I say we will start with the basics so that we will go into the deep reasons why we should be Sabbath keepers, why we should enjoy Sabbath keeping. These are the basic rules that we say, let's revise together first before we go into the depths of the Sabbath. But before we go into those depths, let's see if the Bible can give us exactly which day is the Sabbath. Go to Luke chapter 53 will tell us when Christ died on the cross. And we know many people use that day and say it's a Good Friday. It was a Good Friday because Christ died on that day and was buried on that day. We want to see that day in the Bible. Which day is it that he died and was buried? And what does the Bible say that day in relation to the Sabbath? What day was that? Verse 53. Look, Christ has died on the cross. What happened to the body?
Luke 23 verse 53.
Right?
And he took it down.
He took
and
the body.
wrapped it
The
in
body
linen,
of Christ is died now on the cross.
and wrapped it in linen,
Right?
and laid it in a sepulchre that was hewn in stone, wherein never man before was laid. And that day was the preparation, and the Sabbath drew on.
So that day was a preparation day.
Yes.
What was following?
The Sabbath.
The Sabbath. So we want that same verse in the Good News. It will tell us exactly, naming the days, which days. That day in the King James Version says it was a Sabbath. It was a preparation day, and the Sabbath was about to come. Follow that day. So we want to know what day it is in the Good News Version. Let's hear.
Then he took the body down,
Right?
wrapped it in linen sheet, and placed it in a tomb which had been dug out of solid rock and which had never been used.
Right?
It was Friday,
That day was Friday.
and the Sabbath was about to begin.
So now we have a clue. When the Sabbath is, the Sabbath follows Friday, according to that verse.
Right.
That day was a Friday. And what happened? The Sabbath was about to start. So we definitely know the day which followed Friday is Saturday, and that's the Sabbath. But let's hear more on verse 24. Finish that verse, 54. Yeah, finish. First, chapter 24, Luke 24, verse 1. What happened?
Now upon the first day of the week.
So the day called the first day followed the Sabbath.
Right.
So the day which follows the Sabbath is called the first day of the week. Listen to that.
Now upon the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they came unto the sepulchre, bringing the spices which they had prepared, and certain others with them.
So King James Version said, the first day of the week followed the Sabbath. But we want to know that first day of the week, what does Good News Version call that first day? Listen to that.
Very early on Sunday, very early on Sunday morning, the women went to the tomb carrying the spices they had prepared.
So that first day, from Good News Version, from King James, Good News says it's Sunday. So they came now very early. But you see, these were the early Christians. Maria, Mary, the mother of Christ, Mary Magdalene, they all came to the tomb early morning. But you see, on Friday, they prepared spices. Go to that verse in Luke 53. See on Friday what they did.
And they returned. This is verse 56.
56.
And the women also, which came with him from Galilee, followed after and beheld the sepulchre,
Right.
and how his body was laid.
Right.
And they returned and prepared spices and ointments, and rested the Sabbath day according to the commandment.
They were still keeping the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
These Christians, these first Christians, Mary, the mother of Christ, Mary Magdalene, they prepared spices, but they did not use the spices. Why? They rested on the Sabbath, according to the commandment that says, do not do any work on Sabbath. But you see, they carried now those spices on the next day. Listen, Luke chapter 24, verse 1.
Now upon the first day of the week,
On the first day now, after Sabbath,
very early in the
very
morning,
early in the morning,
they came unto the sepulchre, bringing the spices which they had prepared, and certain others with
you see,
them.
those spices which were prepared on Friday were not used on Sabbath
Right.
by these women who were followers of Christ. Why? Because they were still resting according to the law, which is in the 10 Commandments. But very early on Sunday morning, they brought the spices to come and anoint Christ. But unfortunately, they did not anoint because they found Christ had risen. And Christ rose up on first day of the week or on Sunday. That's what the Bible says. The Bible has a correct calendar which God uses. And Friday is the 6th day, followed by Sabbath is the 7th day, and the Sunday is the first day of the week. And this is the calendar which God has given. So when he's talking about the Sabbath, saying this day is a sign between me, this day, don't do anything, he knows exactly the Bible has got a day. We cannot just say, do a guesswork. The day is there. And when the day is there, that's the one that he brought all those blessings. He rested. He was refreshed. He sanctified it. You do the same. You get that sanctification. You get that refreshment. You get that rest. This is the day that God sanctified. And then you get that health law that you continue living healthy. You have a break in each week, which makes you healthy. A break in each week, which makes you healthy. This is what God designed for human beings. And if we follow with our ordinary holidays, breaking and going for holiday and getting that refreshment, what more on the day where He put all the blessings of refreshment, which is one day a week, every week. We're going to continue as a series of the Sabbath. And we want to learn, why did God give us this day? But let's finish that paragraph where we had attempted so that this goes without any. So here we are seeing, He says, I will cause you to ride on the high places of the earth. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now let's hear on that next point 3. He says, when the Sabbath is thus remembered.
When the Sabbath
Mm-hmm.
is thus remembered,
Mm-hmm.
the temporal will not be allowed to encroach upon the spiritual.
The temporal, what is the temporal? What we have been doing throughout the week, going to work, going to the, doing all this, tilling the land. These are temporal things. They don't encroach into the holy things, which is the Sabbath hours. They are all God's hours. They don't belong to man. They belong to God and God alone. Listen to that. Uh-huh.
No duty
Mm-hmm.
pertaining to the 6 working days
Mm-hmm.
will be left for the Sabbath.
No duty is left for the Sabbath. Even when you are a minister, all the things you're supposed to do ministering, do them in the 6 days. And the Sabbath, rest. He did not say 6 days thou shalt labor your own things. Even His things, if they are the ones to cause you to labor, 6 days you should not leave them for the Sabbath. Do them. Anything that you are supposed to do in the middle of the week is not preserved to be done on a Sabbath. That's breaking the Sabbath. The Sabbath was for you to rest your brain and get that refreshment. Now here it says, no duty pertaining to the 6 working days will be left for the Sabbath. Yeah? We'll go into all these depths about Sabbath, and you love to be a Sabbath. I love to be a Sabbath. We will see what God wants on His days and what is it that we are supposed to benefit from the Sabbath. Now listen, finish that paragraph.
During the week, our energies will not be so exhausted in temporal work
Mm-hmm.
that on the day when the Lord rested and was refreshed, we shall be too weary to engage in His service.
There are some people who use, God said we should work 6 days, and then they exhaust themselves the whole 6 days. Come Sabbath, they say, oh, come Sabbath, let me rest. They are so tired on Sabbath that they present a lame offering to God because they are not capable for doing anything. That rest does not benefit them because they have broken the Sabbath. They are tired already. So we are being told here that during the week, all our energies will not be so exhausted to temporal labor that on the day when the Lord rested and was refreshed, we shall be too weary to engage in His service. Make sure you are not approaching the Sabbath only to go and slumber in church because you are tired. It's a day which should bring excitement because God is bringing blessings to you. The blessing, temporal blessings, and also spiritual blessings. We all need those blessings. So on the Sabbath, it's not the day that we should say, come, was a weekend, I'll just go and sleep and slumber and cover up all the hard work which I've been doing the whole week. No, that's not it. That's not the position, the condition of our bodies on a Sabbath. They should be alert to get the refreshment that God has given. Now let's hear more. Mm-hmm.
While preparation for the Sabbath is to be made all through the week, Friday is to be the special preparation day.
The whole week when we have been shopping around, we are shopping with the Sabbath in mind. What am I going to eat? Or what am I going to dress? We are doing all that the whole week. we have the Sabbath in mind. And we have been working in our secular jobs and everything. But Friday is the day that we should find ourselves happy to prepare for that solemn day, for the day that God has blessed. But let's hear what happens on Friday then.
Through Moses, the Lord said to the children of Israel, tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord. Bake that which ye will bake today, and seeth that ye will seeth, and that which remaineth over lay up for you to be kept until the morning. And the people went about and gathered manna, and ground it in mills, or beat it in a mortar, and baked it in pans, and made cakes of it.
There you are. Preparation of food that is supposed to be eaten tomorrow. Bake what you can, seed what you can, so that on Sabbath you can't say, oh, this day I can't cook, I can't do anything, so I'll be hungry all day. No, prepare the food. You get the blessings of preparing food for the Sabbath. Bake what you can. Listen to that. They are lost.
There was something to be done in preparing the heaven-sent bread for the children of Israel. The Lord told them that this work must be done on Friday, the preparation day. This was a test to them. God desired to see whether or not they would keep the Sabbath holy.
You can read for yourself in Exodus chapter 16 verse 23 or Numbers chapter 11 verse 8. And you see, why did God tell them to go and pick manna every day for 6 days? But on Friday, they were to pick 2 portions of manna. One for the Friday and the next one for Sabbath. Why? Because there was a test whether they will prepare something for Sabbath. Because on Sabbath, what they need to do, they need to rest. Because you still have your tummy there, it will be hungry on Sabbath. But what food should we eat? The ones that we prepared a day before. This is what we get. Now, we are being told there was a test. This was a test to them. God desired to see whether or not they would keep the Sabbath holy. It says, in the middle of the week, when they picked 2 portions, the other portion would get rotten. But when you picked on Friday, it remained fresh on Sabbath. So it means God has got a lot of us to prepare for the Sabbath on a Friday. So you cannot say, I didn't prepare, that's being careless about Sabbath. Each one has to get a double portion blessing on a Friday, preparing for the Sabbath. Not to go to church and you see when people are eating there in church, they will share and I'll get my share. That's being careless about the Sabbath. Prepare and get the blessing of preparation on Friday. And then on Sabbath, you eat what you prepared. Unless you have got nothing. But most of the time, it's just carelessness and dependence syndrome. To depend on other people who have prepared. Yes, they will give you. But when it becomes a habit, you find somebody who is very confident to tell you to prepare. That's not good. It brings a wrong feeling on a Sabbath. Now, let's hear on 355.1. And this direction.
This direction from the lips of Jehovah is for our instruction. The Bible is a perfect guide, and if its pages are prayerfully studied by hearts willing to understand, none need err upon this question.
Right. So this was a direction, and is still a direction for us to go into the Sabbath and get all our full blessing. God sees what we do on Friday. Are we preparing for the Sabbath? Then he gives us a blessing already on Friday, and then we get the blessing of the Sabbath. When you continue on the second paragraph there, in 355:60, you find there's another instruction there. Many need.
Many need instruction, as to how they should appear in the assembly for worship on the Sabbath.
There you go. How do we keep the Sabbath? You should also remind yourself and everyone who sees you that today is a Sabbath by what you put on. If you put on a dress or a suit in the middle of the week, it's not a sacred day. So you cannot share that suit on a Sabbath. Because that's why there should be something which has been specially preserved for the day of the Lord, for you to look well in front of the God of the universe, of the government in heaven. Much as when you are called in the governments of the earth, you are called to meet the leaders, the top leaders. You put a nice attire so that you are well presentable. Still the same with God. He needs a well presentable somebody who has preserved something for the Sabbath. And God understands that you are making that day honorable. A day which is not something that just throw anything on your body and just go and say, I'm only worshiping in the heart. So whatever is outside, I have nothing to do. You have to be presentable because you are in front of the God of the universe. You need to be very sober and presentable. Now here it says, many need lessons in that. Right, read on, let's hear.
They are not to enter the presence of God in the common clothing worn during the week.
So
all should have a special Sabbath suit to be worn when attending service in God's house.
Right.
While we should not conform to worldly fashions, we are not to be indifferent in regard to our outward appearance.
We are not to chase around with the fashions, but we should have something neat in front of God, something presentable, because He is a God of the universe. We are in front of the living God, and we should just show how important He is by how we appear. Now, let's hear more.
We are to be neat.
We are to be neat.
And trim.
And trim.
Though without adornment.
Without adornment.
The children of God should be pure within and without.
Pure within and without. Neat, simple, and trim. In front of the God of the universe. And?
Next paragraph.
Right? On Friday.
On Friday, let the preparation for the Sabbath be completed. See that all the clothing is in readiness and that all the cooking is done. Let the boots be blacked and the baths be taken. It is possible to do this. If you make it a rule, you can do it.
And you get your blessings.
The Sabbath is not to be given to the preparing of garments, to the cooking of food, to pleasure seeking, or to any other worldly employment. Now,
some see, I needed to put on this red dress or this pink dress or this what, but then it's got a seam which needs, some bit of taking. It's not the time to do that. You could have done that on Friday. On Friday, that's where you do the preparation. Take that dress out of your wardrobe. Check it. Is it suitable for the day? Leave it there. It's for the Sabbath. Your shoes, do they need blackening? Blacken them. Whatever it is that you need. Some use their cars to carry them to the church because it's a bit distant. Put the petrol on Friday. Don't wait until on Sabbath and say, I have nothing to carry me. Okay, let me pass by the garage. Buy that petrol. Some need to go by bus. Buy it if it is possible. Buy the ticket a day before. It will be for that day if it is possible. You understand? So try by all means to have no work carelessly done on a Sabbath. Now, and what?
Before the setting of the sun, let all secular work be laid aside and all secular papers be put out of sight. Parents, explain your work and its purpose to your children,
right?
And let them share in your preparation to keep the Sabbath according to the commandment.
Right. This is what you should do if you want the whole blessing of Sabbath. By the way, I haven't even explained what blessings we are supposed to get from the Sabbath. What is the reason for doing all that? But now I'm still going with you, slow but sure, with the basic preparations and basic keeping of the Sabbath. But when we meet, we will go deeper to find what is the reason for us doing all these things. What do we get? What are we being prepared for? Why is God making all these preparations with us? Is it a time for us with needless, preparations and all these things just for nothing? We will see the reason why we are studying about the Sabbath. And it's a very extensive subject. We will keep on it until we learn to be Sabbath keepers. But we'll finish that next paragraph and then we can wind off.
We should jealously guard the edges of the Sabbath.
Which are the edges of the Sabbath? Sabbath starts at sunset. Whether your sun goes down at 2 o'clock, that's your sunset. I've heard some people say it starts at 6 o'clock, and yet the sun set already at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, and then you wait to start your Vespers after sunset. No, that's breaking the Sabbath. And there are some who pick one secular job, which on Friday will make them encroach onto the holy hours. You should rearrange your work, rearrange your how to work at the same time keeping the Sabbath. Rearrange, If it means changing the course, change it. If it means going and training something to do, it's better to remove one hand than to enter into the hell with all the hands. If it is the hand that causes you to break the Sabbath, take it off. And it's better for you to enter the kingdom without that hand than to have the whole body disappearing in hell. So it's about sitting down and seeing what is it that will give me that salvation, that will make sure I don't encroach on God's days, and rearranging for your children, advising them. There are some children who are ill-advised, who are not, the parents fancy names of professions without even taking care of the edges of the Sabbath. Is the child going to guard jealously in the edges of the Sabbath, or you're just after money, or after whatever you think, prestige or anything? But make sure the edges of the Sabbath, sunset to sunset, when you go into the first day of the week, sunset on Friday to sunset on Saturday. Those are the edges which are full of blessings. Guard jealously, that's where God gives these blessings. Sometimes you go to church, by 12 o'clock, people are busy doing something else. The edges have been destroyed. Sometimes people start the Sabbath later in the middle of the night, on Friday night. The edges have been destroyed. God looks at those two edges, the beginning of the Sabbath and the ending of it. Don't end it too quick and say the Sabbath is delaying, we need to start this. Those are the edges. You have wasted a full day without blessings. So here, we guard jealously the edges of the Sabbath. Listen to that and finish that paragraph.
We should jealously guard the edges of the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that every moment is consecrated,
Mm-hmm.
holy time.
Right?
Whenever it is possible, employers should give their workers the hours from Friday noon until the beginning of the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
Give them time for preparation,
Mm-hmm.
that they may welcome the Lord's day with quietness of mind. By such a course, you will suffer no less even in temporal things.
You find some people, they know the Sabbath is going to start at sunset. And sometimes they are working the whole Friday. They don't even give themselves even half day to make their preparations. They finish sometimes 4 o'clock. The sun is left with only 2 or 1 hour. They are hurrying and everything is rushed. Everything, the Sabbath is coming. Quick. You do not enter the Sabbath with the right spirit or the right mind. You need to be calm when you enter those edges of the Sabbath. So it means you plan your life so that when you enter into the Sabbath, you are as calm as anything. Someone is looking for money, picks a shift on a Friday. And already you don't remember there is a Sabbath. And you want all the things to work well for you. But there is a Sabbath coming with all those blessings of whatever you are looking for. So we have to guard jealously the hours of the Sabbath. Sometimes it's so hurried. It's now at the end of the Friday, at the end of the day, and everyone is, and you are now so hostile. Everything runs so slow for you, and and even the angels, they go outside and leave you. You are so tensed up. You are not in a position ready for the Sabbath. The Sabbath should come when you are waiting for it. Come. You did your preparations. You did everything which is needed on Sabbath. Everything, your bath, your blackening of the shoes, your bakings, whatever you want to eat on Sabbath. You have done everything, and it's all, you remember, no bad word should escape your mouth the whole week. You should practice those principles. They are from the government of heaven. And then when the Sabbath comes, finds you singing, ready for it. You are ready for the Sabbath hour. They find you in a calm spirit, and this is what God is looking for. And you remain with that calm spirit, enjoying all the sacredness, the sacred pleasure with everyone, the presence of the Holy One amongst your home, amongst your church, everywhere you go. And this is what is the proper way to keep the Sabbath. You will enjoy and call that day a sacred delight, a day that you get all the blessings and you continue with that refreshment. We will continue with the Sabbath observance, and if it is going to help you and I to enter the pearly gates, may God bless you.